Horizon Zero Dawn was perhaps one of the most exciting and highly anticipated games of the last decade, perhaps only rivaled in hype by the arrival of Cyberpunk 2077. Anyway, with the release of the newest installments of this Guerrilla Games series, Horizon Forbidden West, just around the corner at the time of speaking, I thought it would be worth a late review to its 2017 predecessor. Now I'll judge this game like I do with all my older releases on my channel as of today and tell you whether I think it's still worth spending your hard-earned money on. This review will be entirely spoiler-free, using only early game footage, and all the subtitles have been blurred out. Before we begin, if you find yourself liking this video, then please do hit subscribe. I'm just one guy who loves video games and sparking conversation about them. This is a small but growing channel, and your support is appreciated. This is Horizon Zero Dawn. Should I still buy it? The story. Whether you're coming into this review blind or you know a little bit about the story, chances are you know that this game is pretty unique. I can't think of a single game which has a similar story or world to this one, which in modern times is quite a rare find. I won't delve too much into the plot as I want to leave that open for you to explore, but the game is set in futuristic America, specifically the 31st century. The world is in a post-apocalyptic state, but unlike almost every video game released in the last 5 years, it's not caused by zombies, or freakers, or infected. You get the point. The in-game enemies are actually machines who come in the shape of real-life animals, albeit a bit more, metally. To begin, it is unknown how the world ended up in this state, but as you progress, you do discover more. We are Aloy, an orphaned girl who seeks to find out the truth about her birth and her mum and dad. That's how the story begins, and naturally it weaves into something far bigger and different. The story had the two main ingredients for a good plot: a likeable protagonist and a sense of mystery and intrigue. When you really think about some of the best video games in histories and their stories, that's what they usually all come down to. Hey, this Dragonborn dude is cool, I wonder why that dragon turned up as I was about to be killed. Boom, good story. Hey, I like this Geralt of Rivia, I wonder why Ciri is so important. Boom, good story. Hey, this V character seems pretty sweet, I wonder when these horrendous gameplay bugs will stop. Boom, good story. In Zero Dawn, Aloy's emotional and heartfelt desire to find out about her parentage, mixed with the intrigue of the world's downfall, makes for a pretty stunning narrative. I really at no point had any idea what was coming next and found the narrative really gripping. A strong ending is also very important, and this game had a beautiful and emotional one. The one thing that maybe held it back, which in a way is more of a gameplay criticism, but there was a lack of interesting side quests. 9. Setting. The game is set in the US, but to be honest, you wouldn't know because of the state of the world. Most of the landscape is a barren wasteland populated only by the machines. There are in-game villages and cities, but most are pretty basic, but that's more of a narrative decision due to the fact that the in-game humans live a tribal lifestyle with houses mainly comprising of huts and shacks. Now it had to be that way because of the story, but a lot of the villages do look very similar. It would have been nice to see a bit more of a point of difference in each place that you visited. As for the cities, they are more expansive and actually feature some stone architecture unlike their village neighbours, but I still found them pretty uninspiring. The first time you wander upon a city, you're a bit like, ooh, that's nice. But when the doors open, I found the inside to be pretty undynamic and lifeless. Aside from the merchants and the odd side quest, it was pretty bland. This for me stripped away one of the most fun elements of an open world game, that feeling you get when you first enter a city. To use Skyrim as an example again, the first time I entered Solitude, I saw a guy be executed in front of his family before I explored the abundance of houses and taverns in the city. The Zero Dawn cities and towns never really inspired me to go back, aside from when I had to due to the story. Okay, parking the negative bus, Guerrilla Games do an excellent job at what I would say is working with what they've got. Creating a post-apocalyptic game can naturally be hard because the narrative restricts you somewhat to a soulless and lifeless world, but they did manage to incorporate some moments of real beauty and a real change in the environment around the map, from desert wastelands to lush forestry mazes into the frozen areas of the north, which is more explored within the game's DLC, which is very good by the way. The saving grace for the setting was that of the ruins of the old world. These can be old decimated buildings still on the surface, such as old football stadiums, offices, houses to underground facilities and ruins. These play a big part in the story and can allow you to find lots of collectibles and lore from the past. Overall, the setting is immensely intriguing, as is the game on a whole, but ultimately I felt a bit disappointed with what was within the cities and villages and the undynamic nature of it. This is without a doubt an area I'd like to see improved in Forbidden West. That said, the odes to the old world and the ruins saved this category for me, and it scores a respectable 7.5. Characters. Well, let's start with Aloy. I've always been told never fall in love with a video game character, as they'll break your heart and, well, they're a cartoon. In fact, now I think about it, I don't think anyone has told me that, but they probably should have. As nerdy and as sad as it may sound, us gamers can admit it. We've all fell in love with a video game character at some point in our gaming career. Nina in Tekken, Yennefer of Vengerberg from The Witcher, Darlene from Dead Rising 3. Ugh, you know, the list is endless. Aloy, for all her beauty, is also a really deep and complex character. You can't help but feel sorry for her at the beginning of the game. She's a lost pup with no idea of why or how she became to be an orphan. And even as her story progresses and mysteries unravel, that feeling doesn't really change. I kind of just wanted to give her a hug, really. She's intelligent, witty and kind-hearted, as well as being fierce. Although I guess a gameplay point, the inclusion of dialogue choices can help you mould your Aloy in your own way, deciding on whether you give an emotional, confrontational or smart response. This doesn't in any way affect the outcome of the story or your relationship with other characters, it simply changes the dialogue, but it was a nice inclusion. Kudos goes to Ashley Birch, who provided voice for Aloy. It shouldn't come as any surprise given her already impressive performances in Life is Strange and the Borderlands series, but she was superb throughout. She's also a self-confessed gamer, so, you know, rock on Ashley. It's worth noting that there are no romance options for Aloy, as she's waiting until she meets me. As for supporting characters, it's difficult to get into this without ruining the story, so I won't. One person I can mention is Rost, who is the man who raised Aloy. In the early part of the game, we learn that everything we love from Aloy basically comes from Rost, a kind-natured man who has clearly taught Aloy everything she knows. Maybe it would be nice to see some more fleshed out characters supporting Aloy on her journey. Most people we meet, we learn very little about. As for the bad guys, there are a few main ones who I won't mention because of spoiler reasons, but they are good and do provide you with a genuine dislike towards them. One criticism is maybe that they don't appear enough in the game. Aloy for me, and indeed many other gamers, is one of the best protagonists in recent gaming history. For characters, Zero Dawn scores 8.5. Gameplay. Given this is the first game really of this nature in terms of fighting hordes of machines with a spear and a bow, I don't really have a precedent, but I would say that this gameplay is really good, especially in terms of combat. You have to fight a lot in this game. It's virtually impossible to travel across the space between settlements without encountering at least one machine, and most are too fast to outrun. This leads to us either employing stealth techniques or straight up combat. Now I'll be honest, I'm someone who normally enjoys to be more of a stealth player, but I actually enjoyed the full frontal combat style in this game a bit more. A lot of gamers comment that the spear is pretty redundant in the game, which I guess is true, and it's an area that I know Guerrilla Games are aiming to address in Forbidden West. There's nothing wrong with the spear, it's just not good enough to use that often. So you will find yourself opting for the bow, of which you have lots of different types, each with different types of ammo. Alongside the bow are rope casters, bombs, traps, and trick casters. The arsenal of weapons allows us to really plan out our attacks depending on the enemy. You study machines to learn their weak points, which will allow you to shoot off certain components, with some even having weak points which will see them be killed instantly. Most of these are difficult to hit though, think of Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. Certain components can actually be picked up off the ground and equipped, such as guns. Early in the game, the narrative forces you to learn of a way to override machines, which will allow you to control one. This gives you the option to mount certain beasts, and the riding in the game was fine, easy enough to maneuver, but maybe a little bit slow. I also felt the mounted combat could have done with a bit of work. However, a huge well done to Guerrilla for allowing us to loot items whilst on horseback. It's infuriating how many games don't let us do this and force us to dismount every time we want to pick up a flower. Loading screens in this game can be pretty long, but the world is entirely open. There's no loading screens to get into cities or through doors, so it's just initially getting into the game and into occasional cutscenes. Crafting could have been better in the game. Aside from crafting ammo and potions, you're pretty limited. You can slot in modifications onto your armor and weapons, but it would have been nice to be able to craft whole weapons and armor sets, something which I believe will exist in the next game. A major stumbling block for me, however, was the inventory. You're going to kill a lot of machines and thus pick up a lot of stuff. It's all very useful and can be used to craft ammo, but it just seems very messy. I'm not sure what the fix is for this, perhaps giving us less loot or less loot required for crafting, or just a cleaner inventory interface. Finally, fast travel exists but does require you to manually visit the place first in order to unlock it. You must also craft fast travelling kits, which you do run out of pretty frequently. A small bugbear of mine, but I like what I call logical fast travel. For example, Red Dead Redemption 2 saw us jump in a stagecoach or a train to get from A to B. Watch Dogs Legion lets us jump on a tube across London. In Zero Dawn, you just approach a campfire and randomly appear. Just make sure you speak your destination clearly. A lot right, but a lot not quite right. It will be interesting to see how these areas are improved in Forbidden West. 7.5. Visuals. Chances are by now that you know that this game is pretty spectacular. In fact, it's usually my go-to game when reviewing other games. I'll often say it's very good, but it's not quite Horizon Zero Dawn. Considering this game was released in 2017, it still looks better than most games released today. The vibrant colours of the world, the dazzling details of nature, the intricate face animations and the complexity of the machines makes this an awe-inspiring journey. I'm not a player who cares too much about visuals in a game. For me, the story and the gameplay will define my choice as to whether to purchase it, but this is an exception. It's probably one of maybe 3 games that I'd recommend you play purely for the visuals. It's as beautiful as my girlfriend, so it has to score a 3. I'm only joking, she does occasionally watch these videos, so it's a 10. Bugs. Within a big expansive world, especially one this visually stunning, comes the risk of bugs. I'm sure there's a big example of this within the gaming community somewhere, maybe even something recently, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I have to say, Horizon Zero Dawn is really clean. Not quite squeaky clean, but occasionally there was a little gameplay glitch, particularly during rather busy battle scenes. But frame rates seemed to be pretty consistent throughout, and there was nothing that broke the game. 8.5. Length. The average time for main story from gamers polled is 22 hours, adding an additional 8 for the Frozen Wilds DLC. I spent more like 32, but that was doing a lot of side quests and collectibles, plus I'm a gamer who likes to take my time. If you're going for 100% completion, I'd estimate at around 60 to 70 hours. So whatever your playstyle, there's a lot to sink your teeth into. The main story, although gripping and intriguing, could have perhaps been a couple of hours shorter. It's not too long, but there's a couple of unnecessary bits that I felt could have potentially been left out. I always judge a length on whether I think at any point this game must be ending soon. If I don't think that, then it normally means I'm content with my enjoyment levels. Within the last few missions of this game, I did start to think about the end. Not suicide, just the end of the game is what I mean. But I wasn't exactly relieved when it finished per se. It was a good ending. Fine margins, but it scores a strong 8. Fun. Is this game fun? Do you know, when I really sat down to construct this review, I looked at the scores and I just thought, as good as these scores are, it just doesn't feel like that good of a game. There was always something missing for me that kept it from being one of those prestigious best games ever, and I couldn't work out why until I came to this category. Now, I'm not saying it's not a fun game, but it is quite easy to become bored of it, and I think for me, that's the reason why it doesn't get into that greatest of all time kind of category. Now, this is only my opinion, of course, and I know a lot of people will disagree with this, but for me, there's not a huge amount to do in this game. I didn't find the collectibles anywhere near as interesting or engaging as other games, and the side quests, aside from one or two, are pretty bland and similar in style. Some games, you know, you can load up and you'd find something to do to entertain you. In this game, I'd say if you're not stuck into a main story quest, you won't last very long. Again, what is the fix to that? I don't know. Random encounters, more RPG elements? I don't know, but it's not my job to know. I'm just saying how this game was for me, and you may entirely disagree. The strong story and the gameplay still makes it fun, so I'm not going to give it a horrendous score, but the really fun game should give you the ability to walk away and take a break from the story and still have lots of fun. This didn't. 7. Replayability. So, would you come back and play this game again? I think you would. It's unique and possesses a strong story, and I think the Horizon series will be one which lives on for many years to come and many releases, and you'll likely want to come back to see where it all began. That said, there will be nothing different in each playthrough. There's no narrative defining decisions, aside from one which is really minor. I've played this game twice. For the first time, I loved it. The second time felt a bit less enjoyable. You will play this game again, but not every year like I do with some games. 7. Value. This is of course subjective to where it currently sits on the market at the time of making this video, which right now is between $14–19, and that is for the complete edition, which includes the Frozen Wilds DLC, which, although not incredible, is very good. For that price, yes, get it, and get it now. With Forbidden West coming out, I can't really see that price changing too much, but if you're watching this video and you've just checked the price and it has, then don't worry. If you've never played it, I think it would be worth paying up to release price for it. Its stunning visuals means the game won't age badly, and the story is unique and important. Also, it's vital that you understand the story of this game before playing Forbidden West, so don't skip it. But if you have to, then please do watch this video up here, which explains the entire story in 20 minutes. And yes, it's from me, shameless plug, I know. The value for this game at its current price is really good. It scores a perfect 10. And here we go, Horizon Zero Dawn climbs into our top 10. If you're unsure why it's above or below a certain game, then please feel free to click on my channel and watch that specific game's review. The scoring system that I use is designed to give each game the fairest score for each category and take away that kind of hype element around big studios, meaning that the little guys can shine too. And as always, it is just my opinion. I take no offense if you disagree. Just be polite about it in the comments. We're all here because we love video games after all. For more videos, please hit subscribe.